Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast, a weekly woodworking podcast. I'm your host, Phil Huber. I'm joined by my usual chumps, John Doyle and Logan Whitmer. Today's episode is brought to you by Garrett Wade, offering unique tools of exceptional quality and solid value since 1975. Today's episode topic is the Extemporaneous episode. Wherein,
look that up. I'm going to Google what that means.
Right. Wherein John, Phil, and Logan did not come up with a topic prior to recording. So we are doing what we do best and just shooting from the hip.
Freestyle.
So call in now. Call the number at the bottom of the screen with your topic and questions.
Yeah. Freestyle. Like East Coast freestyle, not.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. We don't do the West Coast thing here.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Midwest Coast.
Yeah. I feel like, although most people won't be able to tell necessarily because of how we record the podcast, but I feel like this is like a Cubs night game podcast because we're shooting it in the evening instead of the middle of the day. And
yeah.
And
by the time
without sweating my butt off.
By the time we're done, it'll probably be dark where Logan is now. So.
Yep. The clock's ticking. I just sent my family out to go get something to eat, so it's quiet here. I don't know how much time I have. So,
we flipped over the hourglass, and now it's time to put together all your boggle words.
Yep.
All right, so Logan, you clearly have lumber stacked behind you.
Yeah, I have lumber stacked behind me. So tomorrow I am shooting some photos for Popular Woodworking magazine, an article on sawmilling and kind of how to get into milling your own lumber. Just happens to be that I have a sawmill. I don't know if you guys have heard, but
I hadn't heard at all.
I know, right? But yeah, I got a call last night at like 5 o'clock, and I love the arborists I work with. Like, I love them to death. They're great guys, great crews, but they don't plan ahead really. So it's one of those, like, 5 o'clock last night, I got a call that said, hey, I got 2 giant sycamores that we're going to have on the ground in 15 minutes. Do you want them? And it's like, well, crap, yeah. So, you load up the sawmill, bring it out, and we sawmill into the wee evening hours when the homeowner actually ends up bringing us out a bunch of her halogen lights. And she was like a little old 90-year-old lady. And she just walks out carrying these halogen lights like they're her walker. And we're milling.
They have tennis balls on them?
They did. They did not. But yeah, so I ended up with a bunch of, so this is all behind me is all Sycamore. So people that are watching on YouTube, which, surprise, this podcast is also on YouTube. Everybody that can see the stack behind me, that is all quarter sawn Sycamore. So kind of a odd wood. It's not wood you see a whole lot of in the commercial market or at hardwood dealers necessarily. It's very hard to dry. So when we got this load back to my house last night, this is about 900 board feet, I think, is about what it calculates out to. And it's all from 2 trees. They're about 35 inches in diameter and about 12 foot long. Big old logs. We got it here last night, and we just quickly stacked it to get it out of the trucks and get inside with our families. So I just for the last 2 hours restacked this with my 6-year-old's help, which he wasn't much help.
Right.
But he was able to pull the PVC pipe that I was using to roll those top slabs, because those ones are 2 inches thick by about 30 inches across and about 10 foot long. So they're really heavy. So I was rolling them with PVC pipe and stacked the rest of it. So that's a quarter sawn Sycamore ready in about 2 years.
Yeah, judging by the size of stacks of wood you got there, I wouldn't say they're sycamore trees. They're more like sycamost trees. Am I right, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
You are right.
Yeah. So, no, it was
that one for a while.
The quarter sawing on a band sawmill is not the easiest thing in the world. Usually you do it on a circular sawmill where you can cut the log into quarters and then you flip
Right.
a quarter every time, and you're cutting basically from the bottom side up, which band sawmill, cuts in the other orientation. So we kind of ghetto quarter saw on these, which is you take 3 slices out of the middle of the log, which are those 6 big slabs up top. So those are perfectly quarter sawn slabs, full width, or as much full width as I could get. And then you take the remaining halves and you flip them 90 degrees, pinch them together, kind of hot dog style, and then you take slices out of that. And then I ended up with all this stuff down here is, ranging from about 8 inches to probably 12 inches wide of quarter sawn stock. So pretty cool. Yeah. And by the way, I got 4 boards up there that did not fit in my banded stacks. So if any of our listeners in the Des Moines area want to come pick up some free 4 boards of quarter sawn Sycamore, they can shoot us an email, and they are welcome to come pick it up for free. So, yeah.
So what does one build with Sycamore lumber?
I don't know.
You could do anything with it.
Yeah.
Part of the attraction of especially quarter sawn Sycamore is that it has this really cool speckled look to it, almost like lace wood or leopard wood or something like that. You get ray flakes like quarter sawn white oak, except that it's a much more uniform pattern, and the flakes are the speckles are real small, probably like the size of your fingernail or something like that all the way across.
Interesting.
Yeah,
and
it's used a lot, I think, in like drawer construction. So like a lot of the drawer boxes, I think in the commercial industry, that's where it's used the most.
Yeah, probably just because there's not a lot of it floating around for commercial use.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Logan, does that make it, when something like a sycamore tree come up, does that make it more likely that you're interested in picking it up as opposed to your typical like weed red oak that's floating around? Or
it does from a small private, private's not the right word, but from like a small side hustle sawmill model. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it makes it more attractive to me to cut, knowing that somebody can't go get a 28-inch wide, 10-foot long sycamore slab anywhere else. You can't go to a commercial mill and get that usually.
Right.
But a small, mom and pop type mill, maybe. But yeah, so when something like this pops up, it's like, oh, hey, this is a sycamore log, or a big cherry tree. We don't get those a lot in Iowa. Or a red elm, something out of the ordinary. That's not an ash tree or a maple tree or I don't want to sound pompous, but even like a walnut tree. I mean, walnut trees are fairly common, at least in Iowa. I know in other parts of the U.S. they're not, but here they're fairly common. So it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's another walnut tree, right? But yeah, when it's something a little less common where we're at, like a sycamore or American
like that
elm,
like that fir that you got.
Yeah, that's the fact. There's a white fir. It's just not something we see a lot of. So it makes it more interesting to me to go get. I did discover this stuff. So every wood dries differently, right? There's different drying schedules for wood, for different wood species. And John, having his forestry degree, probably knows some of this.
Oh, yeah.
But
Top of mind.
So some wood dries very easily and very readily. Basswood's one of them. Like you cut basswood into 1-inch boards, it's ready to use within like 60 days. Air dried. I mean, it loses moisture like that. Sycamore, I come to find out as I'm researching quickly, like to figure out the drying schedule, what I need to do with it. It doesn't dry very nicely, which at that point it was too late because the sawmill was hooked up and I was getting ready to go on my way. But I guess sycamore is an interlocked grain like elm does, so it doesn't split easily. But any wood with an interlocked grain like elm, which I do have experience drying, or sycamore, it tends to do this thing when it dries. It turns into a potato chip basically. Just the grain pulls it a million different directions. So it happens to be that the best way to combat that with Sycamore is the quarter saw, which is the most desired cut anyways. Because I will say there are some areas in this stack that the way I cut it ended up being kind of flat sawn a little bit. And it's I believe it's closely related to a maple tree. It looks very, very similar to a maple. So yeah, kind of interesting.
Cool. So, I mean, not to keep harping or allowing you to keep talking about your sawmill, but to me is what's interesting hearing you talk about it, and only because I get the pleasure of working with you every day, is like you're excited about having your own lumber as an inexpensive source from the sawmill, but you've also been legitimately jacked up by learning about the different characteristics of wood, other than, like, this is a light colored wood, this is a dark colored wood, this one's heavy, this one I'm never going to try again.
It's fascinating to me, and it's not something that's new by any means, but now it's just a different level of new, I guess. Because I mean, I got into milling when I was very young. It was my grandpa taking a couple trees down, which unfortunately I have to go this weekend to sawmill the rest of the trees in his backyard from our lovely derecho. But it's fascinating to me, the difference in species of material that we have available to us or that aren't available but grow around us.
Sure.
Like one of the other trees the arborists were asking me about yesterday, they're like, hey, we're going to take down a couple mulberry trees, do you want them? I'm like, no. Which then I started thinking about, I was like, well, why not? Like, you don't see mulberry lumber very often. Is there a reason why? And you kind of get into these rabbit holes of, it's like, oh, this group of people really loves mulberry, like Turners will do it. I mean, the Turners are the type of guys that be like, hold my beer, I'll try it, like, because they're not invested in anything really, right? It's like,
right.
What's it take to cut a log and put it on a lathe and spin it and just see what happens? Like, what's the worst you can do? I mean,
right. Well, plus for the most part, when you're turning, like, the one piece of wood is the object.
Exactly.
You're not trying to fit, mulberry drawer fronts to hard maple drawer sides inside of a case, and then if things go all squirrely, then you're kind of screwed.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm excited. Most of this lumber I will probably end up selling at some point. I know Eric Loggy, one of our co-workers, he really wanted some course on Sycamore, told me if I ever got any, let him know. So some of this will go his way.
So Eric's on notice now.
Yes, Eric's on notice. But most of this I will probably sell, but I have seen some very cool stuff. I remember there used to be a show, David J. Marks Woodworks, on DIY Network, whatever channel it was on. I've seen him do some stuff with quarter sawn Sycamore that was very cool. This stuff has a lot of color in it right now, which I've always seen the kind of pale gold, like the maple-y color.
Sure.
This is like, if I didn't know any better, I would say this was cherry when I was stacking it. It was
right.
It was
that's what it looks like
salmon
here.
color.
Yeah. And I think it has that opportunity to be more of a medium brown wood instead of something that's light, or just instead of something being closer to walnut or something either.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. John, what facts can you tell us as a forestry minor? What facts can you tell us about Sycamore tree?
Let's see if I can dig deep back into like 20 years since graduating from college.
I mean, you have all your notes, right?
Forest minor class on Sycamore properties, and no, that's why I was asking you, because it's like we were dealing, like in those classes, we were dealing more with stuff that was readily available, commercially available.
Yeah.
Like, talking more about that, because it's like, you wouldn't talk much about Sycamore just because it's like, how often are you going to run into it commercially? And, so it's like, that's why I was interested. Is like, what do you build out of Sycamore? So,
well, It's interesting, and this is you got me on a freaking tangent, Phil, because this is just like fascinating to me. So Sycamore is, I believe, one of our tallest trees in Iowa. It's one of the tallest growing trees in Iowa. But what that makes it prone to is wind shakes. So like the tree, as it's growing and is getting blown by the wind, the growth rings start separating from each other. Early wood starts separating, which is very interesting. And as I was cutting some of this, all of a sudden the board would just go crack and split apart completely, like not following any grain line that you could see. I mean, it was probably following a grain line since it was quarter sawn, but on the face of it, since it's quarter sawn, you can't really see a good grain line. But that's exactly what it was wind shakes, which unfortunately most of our trees in Iowa now probably have some form of wind shakes. So, it's just it's fascinating. I'm done talking now.
Yeah. No, yeah. I always found it interesting too. It's like the stuff that we get from the lumber yards or the mills or whatever. It's like so homogeneous. Like the oak that we get, it's all the oak looks the same. And I don't know if it's the way they sort it or the way it's grown on plantations or where it comes from, but it's like way different than the stuff that you guys will bring in. That's like you found in your yard or cut this, a friend cut their tree down, or it just seems like way different properties and color and grain, that it's just like you go to the lumber store and it's like all the maple is like this and all the oak's like this, and then you'll bring in like, oh, I had this ash tree, cut down in my yard, or I had this apple tree. It's just, looks totally different than what you can go to the store and buy. So I've always found that kind of interesting, that it just seems to have much more personality than the commercially available stuff. So kind of cool.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, same thing, and that's one thing I think that interests me about these different trees and tree species and seeing different trees, and mostly what I'm dealing with is urban trees. That each tree is individual, so each tree is completely different. Like I've never cut an ash tree that looks the same as another ash tree. I had one at the most recent ash tree I cut. When I got it here and started unloading it, it had turned a pumpkin orange, which was the craziest thing in the world. I've never seen that before. And I've cut 20 different ash trees, and all of a sudden this one's pumpkin orange. I'm like, it must be where it grew, must have been sucking something out of somebody's septic system leach field or something. I mean, it's just it was
Metamucil orange.
Well, actually, now that I think about it, that particular tree, they had clay tiles in their septic field. I don't know if there's a correlation, but the arborist refused to drop them the way that the trees were leaning because the clay tiles would break if the tree hit it. Yeah. So they used the skid loader to yank it the other way. So, yeah. Cool. I love it. It's a lot of work. It keeps me in shape, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is funny because I look at like Matt Cremona's videos and he's in a different sort of shape with his sawmill.
Yeah. He's been doing it longer.
I can't even respond to that. I'm going to text him right now. Dang it.
Yeah. Do that.
So we've gotten a couple of questions and or comments that I want to read. A couple of these I've posted on the show notes page for previous episodes, but I think oddly enough, it kind of fits in with what we've been talking about. This one is from Sean, longtime listener, first-time writer. I'm a student of woodworking. I've been learning from you all, Norm Abrams, David Marks, and the St. Louis Woodworkers Guild as well for many years now. You mentioned in a recent podcast about taking advantage of recovered wood from natural disasters. I would also like to suggest that wood for outdoor projects can be recovered from the takedown of cedar decks. After a few passes with a metal detector, a trip across the jointer and the planer, there is usable stock to be found underneath. These are not heirloom pieces by any means, but it beats letting that wood go into a burn pile or landfill for that matter. I created a lot of sawdust making these projects, and he showed a few photos of it. And yes, I know that the tops of a few of them are glue-ups, but I keep them oiled and waxed since they get a lot of weather. When the weather finally does destroy them, I'll just make new ones. Keep up the good work.
Cool.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And then the other one is from M. Virginia Martin. Just a note to tell you that I particularly enjoyed the episode about opportunistic woodworking. He has a question, though. Where are the people with sawmills in Houston? I've never seen one. Just local guys who cut up trees and mulch them. I have a large aging ash tree in my yard. We had a huge branch come down in a windstorm recently, and I talked to the guys into giving me a couple of offcuts to play with. I put trash bags around them to hopefully prevent checking, but at 66, I'm not sure how I'm going to slice into these boards. I have a 10-inch table saw with a cast iron top and steel floor stand, ancient and delta without a riving knife. I do have a bandsaw, but I think a 5-foot, 12 to 14-inch round chunk of trunk is just too big. I'll need to come up with a jig to stabilize it so I can obtain a flat side. 2 passes through the table saw, maybe? My son-in-law wants you to help me out. The other chunk is 3 feet long. I consider these practice pieces. The tree was planted in 1972, and we are the last in the neighborhood to still have ours standing. I want to explore what to do with them when it has to come down, which will probably be in the next 3 to 5 years at most.
All right, first of all, John has to get the joke out of the way. I saw one pop up. I don't know.
I was like thinking about the running it through the table saw. It's like,
oh, okay.
I'm gonna try that.
I was thinking I'm gonna steal the name Chunka Trunk. Come on, that's like an awesome sawmill business name. Completely jack that. If I can get the rights to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's probably still available.
Better than stump grinders.
Nope.
I wouldn't run it through the table saw.
No. But
okay. Maybe if you screw it down to a board first, or if you're able to split it with like a froe or wedges.
Sure.
Right? I think that's valid. If you can start a kerf on one end of the log, grab a metal wedge and start pounding it in and hopefully split it, then that'll give you a fairly flat surface that I think you could screw to like a piece of plywood and then start making slices. I think that's valid.
Well, even that starts to make it easier to get it up on the bandsaw, though, too.
Right.
Well, that's what I was going to
where I
say.
would go, the bandsaw.
Yeah.
If you can. But
yeah, because with the table saw, you're limited to what? 3.5 inches at most, for the most part, with a 10-inch table saw. So bandsaw is the bet. There's no sawmills in Houston because it's too dang humid there. Humid and hot. But no, I think there are. If you search around and send me an email, and I'll put some feelers out to see if there are some portable mills around there. I'm a couple networks of sawmilling communities. So
I mean, some of the sawmill manufacturers kind of keep a directory too, don't they? Like Norwood or
Woodmiser has one that actually you can, I think, interactively get on their website and see who's local to you, right? Which is pretty nice. Norwood has one, and they've had one in the works for a while. They have the directory, but it's not accessible to the public. I think they're waiting for some infrastructure to make it public.
Sure.
But if you search around, or shoot me an email, I'll be able to probably find somebody for you. But that being said, it would probably be best to wait until the tree comes down. Just to get your money's worth.
Yeah. Is there like a minimum size that you would work with? Like he's talking about, he's got 5 foot, 12 to 14 inch diameter. Is that kind of like not worth your while, or does that depend on the sawyer?
It depends on the sawyer. I mean, I think everything, if the tree is, so personally for myself, if it was like, if somebody's like, hey, do you want this log? I would pass on it. Just because,
right.
Got a lot. If it was a tree that was sentimental to the owner, like this is his ash tree. I mean, it's been there for years. I would never, tell somebody don't mill it because it's too small. I mean, I would highly suggest, and this is probably one of those instances, I would highly suggest probably staying away from limbwood. Limbwood grows in tension. So gravity's pulling on that limb its entire life. So the wood on the bottom side of the limb is being compressed as the fibers on the top of the limb are being stretched. And what happens is as soon as you start cutting that tension starts releasing. And I think everybody's probably had an instance where they started cutting something in the table saw and it starts pinching closed on them. That's the same sort of stress that you get in that limb wood. So generally, we suggest reserving limb wood for bowl turning or carving or something like that. But if the limbs are fairly vertical and they don't have that much stress on them, never hurts to try.
Sure. All right, we're going to take a short break here for a message from our sponsor. For 45 years, Garrett Wade has been driven by the belief that the tools you use in your shop or garden should be as enjoyable as the finished work itself. Their team travels the world to ensure each tool selected has exceptional quality and solid value for their customers. Whether it's from a regional maker of Japanese pull saws or leather crafters right here in the US, their tools are timeless and will last for years. For their 45th anniversary, Garrett Wade is celebrating the makers who have been part of the journey. Garrett Wade is giving away a $500 gift card to one lucky winner that can be used for any of the high-quality tools they carry for the shop, home, garage, and garden. 2 additional winners will receive up to $250 in additional Garrett Wade prizes. You can enter to win the grand prize at garrettwade.com/sweepstakes. No purchase is required. Good luck.
Are we can we win that or no?
Probably not, but
okay.
My favorite screwdrivers I own.
Can Don Joyle win?
Don Joyle might be able to do it. Yeah.
Cool,
My favorite screwdrivers are from Garrett Wade. My wife ordered them for me.
I have one of their push drills that I use as part of my workshop toolkit for doing pilot holes. And
I've always wanted one of their little odd job things. I don't know. It's one of those things that just makes me happy. Looks fun. So if I win the gift card, if Don Joyle wins the gift card,
you're getting like $500 worth of Stanley Odd Jobs.
Yep. Stack them up.
All right. That's fair. All right. So what have you guys been working on recently?
Well, I've been the last couple of days doing just homeschooling with my kids. So that's been fun. I'm ready for them to go back to school with their teachers. I'm definitely on that side of the fence. But
right. So even though your wife is a teacher, you have discovered a newfound appreciation for teachers.
Right. But yeah, she was teaching her students today, and I had my kids home doing Zoom school, as they say. And she got home, and I was just like, "You'll never understand what it's like to deal with kids just asking questions all day and just needing you all day." And she just kind of rolled her eyes at me and was like, "Yeah, I'll never know. I'll never know what that's like." But such is the times,
right?
But,
yeah, we had our first preschool assessment today. It wasn't called a test. It was an assessment to see where the reading was. So it was like I had to sit in there with him and tell the teacher which box he was pointing to. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I was bored at one point, and my first grader was doing some sort of interaction with the teacher class, and I'm standing behind the camera and giving her answers. It's like, it's six, raise your hand. It's 6. So it's just feeding answers. And so I'm probably the smartest kid in first grade right now. No big deal. I don't want to brag.
Yeah. So it's not a competition.
Right. It clearly is not. I've got math skills of a 3rd grader, so not even close. So yes, I'll be ready to be back in the shop here in the next week. I'll be just chomping at the bit. So can't wait. So today, I texted my wife. I said today has been the longest day ever, and it's only 10:45 a.m. So that's where I'm at right now.
See, it's nicer when the kids are older because my two are doing online school and have really taken to it for the most part. And for the first week, I was with my middle schooler and thinking that I would have to jump in and help him out or anything, but it was more like I didn't need to be there and he would be better for it.
What have you been working on, Phil?
Well, recently I'll put photos on the show notes page. I had an aluminum lawn chair that had some redwood slats on it that we got from my wife's grandmother. So there's a little sentimental value there. And I've refinished it, and the slats are all redwood, and it just looks awesome. But one of the support pieces down below, kind of aluminum pipe bent thing, kind of failed on me. And I wanted to be able to figure out a way to fix it. So this past week I put together, I didn't have all redwood, but I had some redwood and some cedar that was real straight grained and had similar color. So I made a frame, half lapped frame, and then glued a cedar panel across the top of it. So it created kind of like a sheer panel look to it, and put that in place, and now I got the chair back up and running. So that was kind of fun. And then I had, as part of it, my dad was in town for the week, so got to do it as a father-son woodworking project. So that was kind of a twofer there. It's kind of fun to be able to do projects with him. After that, I don't know what I have going on. I have a couple of projects and some Christmas projects I need to get started on again, but I felt a little burnt out after trying to get the TV show season done. So I feel like I'm just kind of catching my breath on all that.
Yeah. So how I felt too, getting done, and then it was like I had all these projects I want to get started on, and then kind of stuck out of the shop for a couple days here, and so get back into it.
Well, and it didn't help either that last week we had, 6 days of rain in a row, right. And it was really, it was colder, not really cold, but just cold and dank. And at least where I live, we ended up getting 7 inches. So that does not inspire me to be out in my workshop.
Yeah. This week's definitely been better. It's more that mild late summer, early fall. Like get out in the shop, get out in the garage. Outside.
Yeah, well, it's this time of year that you get the highs still almost in the 80s, but then it gets really cold really quickly once the sun goes down. Which I mean, that's why I figured I'd sit out here tonight and do the podcast. It's it's actually nice out, Yeah. And I can get away from the kids.
They'll find you.
I know they will. I locked the door.
Oh, nice.
They haven't figured that out yet. No, so I've obviously been doing some milling. Yesterday, I have some milling tomorrow morning for photo shoot, and then I'll actually be taking Friday off of work to go do a milling job for an arborist here in town. And then Saturday, I'm also doing milling again. So the rest of my my workshop time has been a digital workshop this last week, trying to get some SIB stuff done, and got pretty much all my copy done for the issue we're working on right now, which is it's nice to get to a point where I'm now waiting for a illustrator to get caught back up so I can continue to work on it. So it's kind of nice to take a breath and be like, whew, okay, done with that. I can take an afternoon off here, take a day off there,
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to get back into the shop, the camper, which is right there. You guys can't see it, but it's at the point where we're using it. It's interesting because when I was out 2 weeks ago, somebody commented on one of our YouTube videos that, oh, Logan must have got the camper done and they must be out camping. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what we were doing. It was awesome. It was amazing. Like, it was amazing everything worked. Like, everything in the camper worked. So, you know, it'll be nice to get my shop, get the garage all cleaned up, get the shop cleaned up. And I think my next thing I'm going to have a go, and I'm not going to say that I wasn't inspired by our guest last week, but I'm going to give some Kumiko a try, I think. I was really looking forward to there's a gentleman by the name of Wilbur Pan. I don't know if you have heard of him. He's kind of the authority on Japanese hand tools. He was giving a Japanese pull saw seminar this weekend, and I missed it. I thought it was Sunday, and it was Saturday, and I mean, you had to purchase the seminar, but I wanted to watch it, and I didn't get to, so I'm going to have to email the company that sponsored it and see if they will sell a copy of it, because I don't know Japanese hand tools very well, so I would love to add a couple to my collection. So
nice.
Yeah. And then I got to find a basswood tree to cut down.
Oh yeah, just cause or just
to use the Kumiko.
Oh right.
You know, so I mean, I have one that's down the hill a little ways on my property, but it's only like 6 inches. That's on the small side. So
right. You can use the white fir too, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Let me grab a piece of it quick. It's
We'll wait.
Don't worry. Don't wait for me. It's very coarse. So this is the white fir that I cut. It's very, very coarse. I would have guessed that this, just looking at this, I would guess it was yellow pine, but it was definitely not yellow pine needles. It's very odd, but I think it is too coarse to use for Kumiko. You know how you get with some of the pines and stuff, you get that very hard late wood, and then you get the really soft early wood. So it's a weird texture. That's what this is for sure. So I had cut a bunch of these 4x4 posts out of the center of this tree.
It looks like it weighs about 14 ounces, right?
Oh yeah, it pretty much floats when I throw it. I was like, oh, this is gonna be great for big bench parts or something, And then I'm sitting here looking at all this lumber I have. I'm like, I need some blocking, so I just got the chainsaw out and started chopping them into 3-foot sections. So all those 5x5 posts went away, or 4x4 posts went away. So.
They're still there.
They're still there.
Yeah.
They're just shorter.
Yeah, they're right here. You see them? Yeah. They're separating all my bundles on my Sycamore.
Yeah. Turning blanks.
Yeah, that's what I want to turn. You know what's worse than fir splinters? Fir splinters off a lathe. Because then they have inertia.
They have inertia. All right, so since we've developed a theme here, Logan, with you and your sawmill, since every tool, it's a universal rule of woodworking that one tool requires the purchase of at least 3 or 4 more supporting tools. What was a surprise, not surprise tool purchase that makes you happy?
My chainsaw. Then there was a stink bug on it. It was so I had been. I mean, there's a couple things that I ended up buying, not because of the mill, but just because they make handling stuff at the back end easier. I don't know if you guys can see. I have orange bands around this lumber, so I did buy a pallet bander. Okay, so I bought ones that are actually it's like a nylon webbing. So almost if you think like a backpack strap, it's almost like that but thinner, and it uses spring clips and a ratcheter, and it works really well. I can get these very tight. That's a motorcycle. I can get these super tight to where they're like piano wire tight on them. I think the breaking weight of that is about 1,200 pounds or something like that. So I kind of knew I would buy that, but I didn't realize how much I would like that thing, because it makes moving these bundles around with the tractor a little bit less sketchy. Like,
Oh yeah.
when they're not banded, you can slam the brakes too hard, and then there goes all the lumber, or if you start bouncing with the tractor, it starts, shaking off the forks. So the pallet bander was a good one, but the chainsaw, I have a couple steel chainsaws. I think I have two others that are kind of like second and third hand chainsaws, and they just need gone through, and I've never gone through them, and they were always just a pain in the butt to get running, and that's why I initially went to the battery powered Atlas chainsaw from Harbor Freight, which I still love that thing. It's still a great little saw. If I'm on the middle of a log and I need to knock a knot off or something, or trim some bark or something, it's perfect. I don't have to start it. I just get up there and zip it off, right? But buying a nice saw, and I don't remember if I talked about this on a podcast. I ended up buying this because of the derecho. I needed a little bit bigger saw for the sawmill anyways. But I bought this to take care of some of the large trees that came down my grandparents' house. It's just so nice just having a good saw that starts like the second pull. Like, I pulled it out of the scabbard, pulled it twice, and it fired right up. And I used it to cut all my stickers to length in a big bundle. So it just puts a stupid schoolboy grin on my face every time I use it. It's so fun. It is so fun. And I won't embarrass myself by showing the sandal slip-on, like, Croc shoes I have on right now. But, like, just standing there, just eating through material and getting my shoes filled with shavings, I love it. It's hilarious. It's like one of those Tim the Toolman Taylor, like, as your, yeah.
Right.
Speaking of, somebody commented on one of your videos the other day. I can't remember if it was a YouTube video or email comment or whatever, that they're 66 years old and they bought a pair of Crocs. Your recommendation. So,
and you know what? Their feet have never been happier. Like, and it's funny because I get so much crap from the arborists I work with. I mean, you go to work with logs, you're wearing steel toe shoes, right? Like, it's a safety thing,
right?
But if I'm going just to pick up a log, or if I'm going just to scope out a tree and make sure we can get the mill there before I actually go to do the work, and I show up in my Crocs, I get so much crap from these guys. And then it's at the point where it's like I'm putting flip-flops on, I'm showing up in socks, I'm showing up barefoot just to razz them up a little bit. But
right.
I'm so happy that somebody bought Crocs.
Yep.
That's not just my thing, though. That's Dylan and my thing. Dylan wears shop Crocs, too.
It's a generational thing.
Right.
In my mid-general... Well, no, now it's multi-generational.
Yeah. Sweeping the nation.
Yeah.
Yep.
My father-in-law, who is a nurse anesthetist, when they built their house just the last couple of years, he actually has a small closet in his bedroom that is largely devoted to his Croc collection. He's like the Imelda Marcos of Crocs and has them for pretty much all occasions. The no strap in the back, the strap in the back, the holes, no holes, fur-lined ones for when it's cold out.
We refer to the strap as four-wheel drive mode, right. Phil, just in the Croc world, just so you know.
My kids call it sport mode. Look at that and just like start sprinting.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man.
There you go.
Yep.
So I will admit that they're comfortable, but for me, it's a little bit of an acquired taste.
Yeah. There's one other thing that I ended up buying at Sawmill, just because you said two or three things. The final thing, even though I got a cant hook with my mill, it came with a little stubby one, like a little, I don't know, could have been more than a 24-inch handle on it.
Right.
I did order from Log Right Tools. I ordered their 60-inch version that will grip up to a 36-inch log. And it's amazing what you can do with a little bit of leverage with a log. I mean,
yeah. Turned it into a can hook.
Yeah, exactly. It goes from a cant hook to a can hook. So
yeah. That one was for John.
There you go.
I say, I'm
job,
surprised
guys.
John didn't spit
Good
it
job.
out. But no, it's yeah. I mean, really, that was pretty much it. Other than my tool set that I did put together to make sure I bring with me as I mill stuff. Those are really the three must-have sawmill things. So, which is fun because I'm going to include that in the Pop Wood article.
Okay.
So kind of the what are your must-have tools to go with the sawmill. So.
Sweet. So which issue will that be in?
That will be the December-January issue, I believe. I don't know what number it is necessarily,
Okay.
but I believe it's the December-January issue.
All right.
So it'll be cool. Got a big old cherry log that we're going to be cutting for that issue. So I'm excited to see what that one looks like.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps everything up today for the Shop Notes podcast. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or smart remarks, you can send them to us on Facebook or the YouTube video version of this podcast. You can also email them to woodsmith@woodsmith.com. Again, I want to say that this episode has been brought to you by Garrett Wade, offering unique tools of exceptional quality and solid value since 1975. Thanks for joining us here on another episode of the Shop Notes podcast, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, everybody.
But I don't know about you, Logan, but like anytime that Phil says he has some comments to read, does it feel like you're getting pulled into called to the principal's office?
No,
over the intercom.
I feel it's like I feel like it's gonna be like the Jimmy Fallon, celebrities reading mean tweets.
Yeah.
That's Jimmy Fallon, right? Because that's gonna be really embarrassing when he says that's not
one
me.
of those.
I don't usually stay up that late. So.
Oh
yeah.
man, that's what I feel like it's gonna be.
Yeah. It's like, yeah.
I feel like Phil's gonna be reading our main emails to us.
It's just it's comments from coworkers about you guys. That's what it
The
is.
suggestion box.
Yeah.
From your permanent file. And then you guess who wrote it.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
Nice. Okay. That's a good topic right there. We should do that sometime.